I purposely picked Green Day's Boulevard of Broken Dreams because if you ask Philly fans right now, they're acting like the Philly season might already be over, and it's August 14th. And yet, I remind people as we bring on Matt Gelb from The Athletic, who covers the Phillies had 3 5-game losing streaks in 2022, and they went to the World Series. Not that that's an excuse, but maybe a little context. Matt, welcome in to the show. How you doing today?
Hey, good weather, be a big crowd. Maybe they'll win, maybe they won't. I don't know.
Well, it's Italian Heritage Night, so it'll be a good crowd, right?
They get a good crowd no matter what night it is right now. I mean,
let's get on that for a sec, because you mentioned about how no matter what, they're getting the good crowds. Like we talked about a couple of years ago here that, it felt like the Philly fan had to be, convinced to come back to the ballpark, right? Now they got some of the best attendance in baseball. So it seems like people are again, they're coming to the ballpark, but is it maybe less to do with the team on the field and more about being in the ballpark again?
I mean, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I know they haven't played well of late, but this is a team that still has a lot of star players that, when they're right, they play an exciting brand of baseball. And I think that is attractive to people. And, you mentioned the 5-game losing streaks. I mean, I would take it even a step further. And I think, going into the season, what was all the talk about? It was about getting off to a hot start. And they accomplished that. They got off to an unbelievable start. It's funny, though, because in their last 60 games, they're 28-32. It's not a good record. But in the first 60 games of last year, they were 28-32. And it's almost as if like the opposite of last season has unfolded this season. And like you said, it doesn't really it's not a good excuse, but it does add some perspective here in that they have 6-7 weeks here to make this thing right, to hit their stride before October comes. And are they going to do it? I don't know. But to suggest that, because they haven't played well now doesn't mean they're going to win in October. I think it's kind of foolish.
Phillies definitely did a little shakeup with the lineup today. Trey Turner on the bench, Castellanos in the 2 slot, Sosa playing shortstop. Do you think that this shakeup is the kind of shakeup that makes sense for a Phillies team like this right now? Or do you think this is just them kind of blindly throwing darts at a dartboard?
No, I mean, I think it makes sense to give Turner a day right here. I mean, he's just he's swinging at everything right now, and it's not a good matchup for him tonight. The Marlins star Edward Cabrera's got great stuff, but he really is a guy who throws a lot of pitches out of the zone. He will make you chase. And right now, if you watch Trey Turner's at bats, it's like what the scouting report is and what the plan of attack is. I mean, it's a lot of breaking balls, off-speed stuff, and a lot of it is down and away. And he is swinging at just about everything right now. And so I think it's a good day for him to just not think about baseball, just like not play. It gives Castellanos a little reward getting up in the 2-hole. And tomorrow, I expect Turner to be batting second and playing shortstop. It does not sound like this is going to be a thing where he's coming back and he's batting lower in the lineup. I think this is just a day to try to reset Turner because we know that he's better than this. I mean, he knows it. We all know it.
So if they're trying to reset Turner today, is it possible that maybe they try to reset Marsh tomorrow? In his last 8 games, he's batting .080. So Marsh goes to Stone Harbor, Matt. Then he comes back, he hits a couple home runs, starts hitting great, and then he goes into this slump in the last 8 games. So he's on an up and down trajectory as well here. Yeah,
I don't think he's going to play a lot this weekend. They're going to face quite a few lefties, I believe, against Washington, and is because he's not going to play a lot this weekend.
Gotcha.
I think 3 out of the 4 games against Washington are lefties, and he's not going to play. And honestly, he hasn't hit righties either. I mean, this has been a slump now that honestly you probably call it more than a slump. I mean, this has been 3 months now of Marsh really not producing the way he should, especially against righties. You acknowledge that he's not going to hit lefties enough to get playing time. He's got to hit righties, and he just hasn't done that. He really hasn't made enough contact. It's a problem, and because of that, I think he's going to be sitting a lot this weekend.
You mentioned they got Patrick Corbin on Friday. I believe it's Mitchell Parker is a lefty as well. So that's 3 straight days, no Marsh potentially in the lineup. So if it's no Marsh in the lineup, Matt Gelb from The Athletic joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. If it's no Marsh in the lineup, what does that mean for Bryson Stott?
We're going to see. I'm going to guess that he doesn't play all of those games. I mean, maybe he sits two of them. Maybe he sits all of them. I mean, some of it might depend on the at-bats tonight that they see from Sosa and from Stott. They like Sosa against lefties, and for good reason. His production has been there, gives them a little spark. I wouldn't be surprised if Sosa plays a lot this weekend.
Matt, you mentioned about them playing the Nationals this weekend. I think a lot of people looked at them coming back home as, man, that was a tough road trip. Now you got the Marlins and the Nationals, and then they lose yesterday 5-0, and people are now, they're starting to sweat. And yesterday, I said earlier in the show, Matt, I said the word of the day is frustrated. You know, Rob Thompson gave the message about being frustrated. Schwarber said they're frustrated, not worried. Is that a fair assessment of this team right now? That they're just trying to get through this situation. They are frustrated, but they will come out the other side.
There's definitely a lot of frustration. I mean, because they know they're better than this. I mean, I think we do too. I mean, this is not a team. Certainly, they're not a team that was, they were on pace for 112 wins for a while, and they're not that team. And now they've been the second worst team in baseball since the All-Star break. I don't think they're that team either. I think they're obviously somewhere in the middle, and I think they are one of the better teams in baseball. They have not played like it for a while, and that can be a frustrating thing. You expect them to go through a skid. I mean, I think we knew that they would. What is frustrating for them and for the people who watch them is that this has gone on longer than it should. And everyone has acknowledged that, and it's not like they're sitting there saying, "Oh, we're going to get through it. We're better than this. We're going to get through it." There's a lot of work and meetings and practice, has gone into trying to get out of it. And I mean, they need to see a ball go over the wall. I think. I mean, they haven't hit a home run in 29 innings now. Not to say that this offense is just completely dependent on the long ball, but it certainly helps. And I think you just see a lot of guys trying to just do everything with one at bat.
Matt, that's a great point about the home run, though. That's a great point because, this is a team that has a lot of money invested in a lot of power hitters. Schwarber, Turner, Castellanos. I mean, these guys, they're not, single hitters. These are power hitters. These are sluggers, right? These are guys who have been able to generate power over the years, and even Real Musso's got power in his bat. So I think it's a great point. Like, if this team can at least get one guy starting to showcase some of that power, maybe the other guys can look at that and be like, all right, we're coming back around.
Yeah, I mean, they're not expecting every guy to be, going hot at the same time. I mean, you also don't expect every guy to go cold at the same time. And for the most part, the lineup has gone cold. Kyle Schwarber has hit for power, has gotten on base here this month. Bryce Harper's swing seems to be coming around. Alec Boehm has been okay. Other than that, I mean, there really hasn't been anyone who has produced. And that's a tough way to live, especially when you're pitching, looks a little shaky right now. They need something to go right. And I honestly thought in the middle of that road trip, I mean, they really did play better baseball. And then it did not end the way that they hoped it would end. And it kind of carried over into the game last night.
Matt Gelb from The Athletic joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Check out all of Matt's coverage of the Phillies in The Athletic each and every day. Also on the Twitter X platform at Matt Gelb. Matt, I wanted to see from you, because you mentioned about that road trip. I felt like there were a couple games they could have and should have won, right? Like the Saturday in Seattle when they lost in the 10th inning. You look at the game Friday night in Arizona when they lost 3-2. It really does, to me at least, feel like if they would have won those two games, maybe we would be feeling a little differently about this team. Is that a fair assessment?
I mean, yeah. I mean, had they won they had a chance to have a 500 trip had they just won one of the last three games in Arizona. And I think it would have definitely had a different feel to it. And I think it's the way they lost. Those last three games in Arizona, it was, walk-off Friday and then two blowouts Saturday and Sunday in which they really were not in the games. And, it definitely left a bad taste, I think, in their mouths because it was a decent trip up until that point. It wasn't perfect, but it was decent. And, they got to their schedule, they come home, and really they just laid an egg last night. And there are no excuses for it because, I just feel like it is time for them to pull out of this. They're a better team than they've played. But somebody's got to step up. I mean, they're kind of waiting to see who's going to step up, who's going to put them on their back, and kind of get this thing rolling again because they need to see a few things go right, and I feel like it would just get everybody on the same page, but it hasn't happened yet.
Matt, I wanted to flip it over to the pitching staff. What is the latest on Ranger Suarez? Because we saw Taijuan Walker return last night, and he's Taijuan Walker. No one's expecting him to come out there and be some elite pitcher, but he's an innings eater. That's what he's. But the guy that people want to know about is Ranger Suarez. So what is the latest on him, and when can we actually expect his return?
He's going to throw a sim game again Sunday here at the ballpark. Going to get up to about 80 pitches in that game, and I think that puts him on track really to be back in 2 weekends when they go to Kansas City. It seems like all signs are pointing to that. He has not reported any issues with the back. I think they've used this time really more than anything to give him a longer pause and to make sure that this guy is not only healthy but also sharp going into October. And even if he comes back next weekend, he's going to end up probably getting to a career high in innings for this season. And I think they're just looking out for him. It seems like he's on track.
You mentioned the game at Kansas City. I believe it's August 25th. There's still no starter announced for that game. So would the Phillies use Suarez's opportunity to maybe bump everyone else down in the rotation, or would it be swapping Suarez literally for Tyler Phillips, you think?
I think it remains to be seen. Probably depends on how Phillips pitches tonight and also in his next one. They could go to a 6-man rotation. They could skip somebody. I think pretty much every option is kind of out there for them right now. It's going to depend on how things go in the next 10 days, week to 10 days.
And part of the reason why I'm asking is because, Christopher Sanchez, he obviously had an amazing first half of the season, but he has been solid, not elite like he was at times in the first half. Aaron Nola has had a couple up and down starts. The only guy who's really been consistent is Zach Wheeler for the most part, and even he's had his moments where he has not always looked like Zach Wheeler. So I'm just I know that Nola and Wheeler have verbalized, Matt, that they don't like the 6-man rotation, but maybe not a permanent 6-man, but maybe just using Suarez coming back as opportunity to go through a 6-man for at least one go around to give everyone at least an extra day before the September stretch is kind of like what I'm thinking.
I mean, I think that's in an ideal world, that is what they would do. They would go to a 6-man for maybe 2-3 turns through, give everybody some extra rest, make sure that everybody is healthy. I think it's going to depend on the standings. It's going to depend on if they have 6 effective starters they feel like they can use. There's just a lot of different things it's going to depend on.
What is your take on the bullpen right now? Because you know how Philly fans are. They see the bullpen and they're all pining for the days of Brad Lidge and, having guys with literal roles in the bullpen. And the way the Phillies run this bullpen, it's not the traditional fans' way of looking at a bullpen. So give us a little context on the roles these guys have in the bullpen and how you think they'll be used moving forward.
I think some of these guys have hit a bit of a wall. I think there was Kaufman and Strom, Kerkering, all three of them, were outstanding for the first few months of the year, and you kind of expected them to have a little regression. And I think it's kind of all happened at once, which has made it, difficult for the Phillies because they're trying to find the right guys to use in the right moments. And there's not a lot of guys who are going great right now. You can add Alvarado to that list. I think Estevez has been fine since he's come over here. He hasn't had a ton of save chances, so it's hard to say that he's really been tested. But they believe in these guys, and I think when you stack up their bullpen to everyone else, all the other contenders, it's right there. I mean, I just think that some of these guys have hit a wall, and better now than later. I mean, I think that they're trying to find a way to get these guys, make sure they get a little extra rest, make sure that they can kind of fix any mechanical issues that they have. Huge concern about some of these guys. I think this is kind of the ebbs and flow of the season. Like, I just did not expect Jeff Hoffman to have a .98 ERA all season. Like, I didn't think Matt Strom was going to have a 1.2 ERA all season. And there's definitely been it's been harder and probably more accentuated because they've all kind of gone, downhill at once.
Matt, before I let you go, When they expand the rosters in a couple weeks in September, what do you think they're going to do?
No idea. I haven't even thought that far. I mean, I don't know. Probably, they could add another catcher. Rafael Marchand could come back. You get one hitter and one pitcher basically now. The roster expansion is pretty limited,
Right.
with the new rules. So I'm sure they'll add another long reliever type. That would make kind of using a 6-man rotation easier in September if they want to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's going to depend again on how things are going come September. I know it's close. It doesn't feel that close though.
I mean, I'm asking because, like, we've seen Kobe Allard up here. We've seen Michael Mercado up here. We have seen guys already up this year. So, like, is it those two guys? I'm wondering, like, are they targeting Spencer Turnbull for September? Like, that's kind of where my mind is going. I'm trying to, like, decipher, like, what they might end up doing because, as you said, how many weeks do they go with a 6-man rotation? Like, who's even going to be in the 6-man rotation? Or do they just say, as you said, these guys are tired in the bullpen. Let's get another reliever in the bullpen.
I mean, it'd probably be a long guy. I mean, I know that like they're hoping Turnbull becomes an option for them as a reliever in September, but he's been a little slower to get back on the mound than they expected. So that one remains to be seen. But yeah, I mean, I think they're hoping that he's a guy in September that they can use at least in some kind of reliever role.
He's Matt Gelb from The Athletic. Give him a follow on the Twitter X platform at Matt Gelb and subscribe to The Athletic for all of his Phillies coverage year-round. And he joined us right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Matt, appreciate the time. Enjoy the game tonight, even if they lose, okay?
I'm good either way.
Matt Gelb joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Does a great job covering the Phillies for The Athletic.